Welcome to the Galactic line. That's the working title of my spaceship game. I've gotten a couple of people trying to talk to me about this game, but Twitter and YouTube are terrible at holding conversations, so let's move it to a forum. This will be the anchor video so that people can stop by and see what the game is about without having to be psychic. Let's talk about what the game is about. It's a spaceship building game. And unlike, say, Kerbal or Space Engineers, this is a game it's like The Sims in space. You're not trying to win by the skin of your teeth against an unrelenting cosmos. It's more like Star Trek. Your ships do have components that do stuff, and you do have to make sure that you've got enough power, and having more engines will make you go faster and all that stuff. But it's not a challenge to get from point A to point B. It's more like trying to enjoy the ships for what they can do. And since you can build your own ship, the idea is that the challenge of building the ship isn't trying to make a ship that works. The challenge is there to push you to try and make interesting, fun ships. So all of these pieces do stuff. This is a jump drive. This is a cargo box. Here's a cargo tank full of liquids. Here's a battery, a power station, armor, thrusters, a coolant fin. So everything does have a thing that it does, and they do have stats, but it's an extremely free-form construction game, and you can basically do whatever you want. As long as everything is connected and the thing is just randomly floating in space, it's all fair game. Let's go ahead and show you this. Here, this is a ship that I just started building a little bit ago. I don't have the play mode construction working. I just have the scene view working at the moment. That's still in the future. This is still pretty young. But let's go ahead and edit this ship just a little bit so I can show you what it's about. What else do we need here? We don't have any maneuvering jets yet. The ship can move forward, but it can't actually brake. So let's go ahead and put in some maneuvering jets. This is the basic maneuvering jet. All of this stuff is very early on. These assets are not anywhere near complete yet, but it works well enough for the moment. So this maneuvering jet is a bit big. Let's go ahead and shrink it down. We can resize stuff without any problem. When you resize it, the mass decreases and the durability decreases and the parameters decrease, but it's all linear. So having four quarter-sized objects is the same as having one full-sized object. We don't want to punish people for wanting to have rows of interesting objects instead of having one giant one. So there we are. We got some maneuvering thrusters, and those will automatically work to brake us or maneuver us differently as we move through space. One of the things about this is that overlaps are fine. So you don't have to worry if your stuff is overlapping with other stuff. For example, this is partly inside of our power generator. That's fine. There's no penalty for it. Now, you don't want to have stuff too close together because damage is radius, and that includes wear and tear. So if we put them too close together, then they will cause damage to each other through wear and tear. But a little bit of overlap certainly won't be any problem at all. And in fact, that's kind of required because your ship has to be connected. Now, not every single thing is free form. You can't rescale and rotate and move everything. For example, these hab areas. This flickering blue panel is a hard point, and that's because these you have to be able to walk through them. There's a door, and you have to walk through it, so you can't like cross space to get from one habitable area to another. Instead, it snaps together so that they're all connected. Now, this game, I said it was like The Sims or Star Trek, and that's very true. This is not a game about building the baddest fighting ship in space. It's not a game about giant navies firing at each other. There are plenty of games about those things. This is more like every ship you build is going to have fun. Every ship you build has stuff it can do, missions it can go on. Like every Sims house you build has characters in it that are interesting, and every Sims house has its own particular feel. And some days you might want to have a Sims game where you're trying to put 18 people into a one-bedroom apartment, and other times you have a giant mansion, or another time you might want to try raising a family. All of those things have the same kind of feel that you get with these kinds of ships. You build a ship because you want to explore what it can do. You want to have fun on it. That includes the crew. All of these ships have habitable areas, and the crew live there. You get to deploy, which room is for which purpose. Maybe this room is a scientific room and this room is your bedroom or whatever. And all of that interior layout stuff is just as important as the exterior stuff. One of the keys to this, and in order to make this interesting, you actually need to have a very carefully designed game. You can't just say, oh, it's about The Sims in space, because you'll end up creating something where you just have crews that have like needs and go around their day-to-day life, but it's not connected to the universe. You don't feel like your ship is doing something interesting. You're just people who happen to live in a house in space. Because of that, what we have for this game, I haven't gotten far enough to do this part, but this is the design idea. We're going to be having missions. The key is that these missions aren't one note. You run several missions simultaneously. They have different lengths. They have different difficulties. They have different required things that, blockades at different points in time. So let's say that we took this ship out to scan, a planet BX9. Well, there are plenty of games where you can do that. You can even, play Star Trek Online. You can go out and scan planet BX9. But this is something where you get there and it takes, N days to scan it. During that time, you have your crew and they're running around having their lives and you're watching your supplies dwindle, doing that sort of stuff. But at some point, you have to go down to finish, to finish scanning it, you have to go and get some surface samples. So you have to send people down and that sort of stuff. That's not all that's happening, though, because in addition to that, you also have like a different medical team that's trying to repair one of your crew members that was injured and it's turned into a big thing, or they're trying to find a cure for the Galactic plague. You have your engineering team, which is trying to retrofit your engines to work better in the atmosphere of this planet so that you can land on the planet. Or maybe they're trying to change your jump drive because now you're closer to the core and your jump drive needs tweaking in order to regain its maximum potential. You have your political team. Maybe you've got a couple of people from a different planet who have a vested interest in BX9, have insisted on coming, and you're trying to establish a relationship with them, a political relationship, so your political team is working on them. And all of those missions have different things that happen at different times. They move at different rates, depending on the capabilities of your ship, how you've laid out your interiors, who your crew are, which crew you've assigned to which mission teams. At some point, you've got to go back to the planet of the people on your ship and have a celebration to move to the next political part. But you're scanning BX9. Do you hang around BX9 and waste time until you're done scanning? Or do you go off to do this political thing and then come back? Because we can intertwine these missions, we can allow for a very gentle slope from, two people banging around in space doing space deliveries up to, giant ship with 1,000 crew on it, each one of them, into 80 different teams, and they're working on 80 different missions that are progressing at different rates at different times. There's a lot of growth potential there, and you can go from small to large without any real difficulty on the player's side. It just, you sweep along. There's no cliff. You don't suddenly go, oh crap, now I have to manage 8 million people. You start off with managing 2. So that's the basic idea. That's the basic principle of how it all works. Let's talk a little bit about technology. This is made in Unity, and I'm using entirely self-created assets, or CC0 assets, except for a couple of small details that I haven't worked out yet, like this background image, which is free but not CC0. But by and large, the idea here is I will be able to, A, give out the Unity project to whoever wants it, and B, I'll be able to take in mods, meaning that people who wanted to could easily add new components to the list, and then people could use those components in their ships. So I'm looking forward to that kind of stuff, and from a technical viewpoint, all of this stuff here, this is 2 days of work, so it's not incomprehensibly huge. This is something which is approachable. It's something that which isn't so difficult that it would drive you off the wall. But I'm not known for finishing stuff. Normally, when there's no interest, I just let it taper off. So if you want to see more of this game, you might want to tell me that, and you might want to talk about what you'd like to see, and what you think sounds interesting, what you think doesn't sound interesting. This is still too early on to share a prototype. It's literally what you've seen. I will have to add in some more details, but which details I add when, I'm not sure. Maybe if people know what they want to see early on, I'll implement that stuff first. Let me know what you think about the design ideas, and specifically, we can talk about nitty-gritty details. I love talking about nitty-gritty details. Like, for example, we got into a conversation about how you would deal with these interiors, whether or not you could place rooms and windows yourself, stuff like that. It's all really interesting ideas, and it's fun to have those conversations, and sometimes you can really get a lot out of them. So hopefully, moving this to a forum will allow that kind of detailed talk. Have a good one. Oh yeah, I'll link to some other videos showing some other parts of this below as well.